Picture the scene everyone knows. Moses raises his staff. Waters part into towering walls. The Israelites walk through on dry ground. It's one of the most dramatic images in all of Scripture. But the oldest version of this story, the one closest to the actual event, never mentions the sea parting at all. And the Red Sea isn't even the right body of water. The Hebrew text says Yam Suph, pronounced Yam Suph. It means sea of reeds, not Red Sea. Reeds grow in marshland, not deep ocean. So how did we get Red Sea? Early Greek translators made a choice. They wrote Erythra Thalassa, Red Sea, probably thinking of the body of water we call the Red Sea today. The translation stuck for 2,000 years, but the Hebrew points somewhere else entirely. The difference matters. The Red Sea is deep ocean, hundreds of feet down. A marsh is shallow water, thick with reeds, difficult terrain for wheeled vehicles. These are completely different settings for a story. Look at the map. The traditional Red Sea route takes the Israelites far south, but a Red Sea crossing places them in the marshy delta region, exactly where Egyptian chariots would struggle while people on foot could pass. The geography changes everything about how we imagine this event. Now let's look at the oldest account we have, the Song of the Sea in Exodus chapter 15. Scholars date this poetry centuries earlier than the surrounding prose. It's our closest textual witness to whatever happened. Listen to the imagery. Pharaoh's chariots sank like a stone, right? The enemy sank like lead in majestic waters. Wind from God's nostrils blew. Waters stood like a wall. Here's what's crucial. Notice what's absent. No crossing on dry land, no parting of waters, no Moses stretching out his staff. The Egyptians sink. The Israelites are saved. That's the core. This sounds like drowning, but here's the key insight. Drowning imagery was a common Hebrew poetic device for overwhelming difficulty, not literal submersion. Consider Psalm 69. The psalmist cries, "Waters have come up to my neck. I sink in deep mire where there is no foothold. I have come into deep waters. The flood sweeps over me." Is the psalmist literally drowning? Read further. He's dealing with enemies, social rejection, personal distress. The water imagery is metaphor. Ancient Hebrew audiences understood this immediately. Modern readers often miss it. Scholar John Collins argues the Song of the Sea celebrates a real escape using conventional poetic imagery. The Egyptians suffered defeat. The poetry describes that defeat the way Hebrew poetry described any overwhelming catastrophe, with water imagery. Later writers composing prose narratives took the poetry literally. Sinking like a stone became the sea literally drowned them. Waters like a wall became walls of water on either side. Metaphor transformed into miracle. This isn't unusual. Ancient writers regularly interpreted older poetry as historical description. The vivid imagery invited elaboration. Each generation added detail. The final text of Exodus 14 and 15 weaves together at least three distinct traditions. Source criticism, the scholarly method of identifying different strands within a text, reveals the themes. First, the poetic tradition, oldest layer. Drowning as metaphor, wind and storm imagery, no crossing described. Second, a practical tradition, Exodus 14, verses 24 and 25. Egyptian chariot wheels get stuck. The army abandons pursuit. Foot travelers succeed where wheeled vehicles fail. Third, the dramatic prose tradition. Moses stretches his staff. Waters divide and stand like walls. Israelites cross on dry land. Waters crash down. Look at the specific differences. In the poetic tradition, Egyptians sink in waters. No crossing mentioned. In the practical tradition, chariots bog down in mud. Israelites escape through difficult terrain. In the dramatic prose tradition, walls of water part. Israelites walk on dry ground. These aren't minor variations. They're fundamentally different accounts of what happened. The final editors preserved all three, weaving them into a single narrative. Ancient readers apparently found this acceptable. They valued preserving multiple traditions over creating a single consistent account. What do we do with this? This isn't about debunking. It's about understanding how ancient texts were composed. Ancient writers weren't trying to deceive. They preserved traditions. They interpreted older materials. They elaborated for theological purposes. The water imagery connects to creation, God's spirit moving over the waters. It connects to the flood, God saving through water. It connects to chaos, God bringing order from disorder. The final narrative carries meaning beyond historical report. God saves his people from overwhelming forces, and that's the theological claim. When reading ancient texts, ask three questions. First, what genre is this? Poetry uses different conventions than prose. Metaphor operates differently than description. Second, look for composite themes. Places where different traditions were woven together, repeated phrases, contradictory details, shifts in vocabulary, these signal multiple sources. Third, consider how metaphor might have been literalized over time. Vivid poetic imagery invites elaboration. Later writers often interpreted earlier poetry as historical description. These tools apply beyond the Red Sea to any ancient composting text. The Red Sea crossing shows us something important about how traditions develop. A community experiences deliverance. Poets celebrate using conventional imagery. Later generations interpret that poetry. Prose writers elaborate the account. Editors weave multiple traditions together. The final text preserves layers of memory and interpretation. The miracle evolved, but the core memory persisted through every retelling. Israel escaped against all odds, whether through marsh or parted waters, whether by stuck chariots or divine intervention. The community remembered they were saved. Yam Suph, the Sea of Reeds, not the deep ocean of Cecil B. DeMille, but marshland where chariots fail and foot travelers pass. Not a single miraculous account, but three traditions woven together. Not deception, but preservation. Multiple communities remembering the same core truths in different ways across centuries.